Blockchain applications go far beyond cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. Join the webinar organized by the ICT Committee on February 24 at 12 noon to hear more about real-world use cases of blockchain that you can apply in your businesses. We all need to be informed to make our vote right and make it count. Let's all register to the Voters Forum also on February 24 at 4 p.m. and share the link with our family and friends. We have very good lineup of speakers on Thursday. Your vote matters. Forum was organized by the Good Governance Committee in partnership with the FINEX Committee. The Social Involvement Committee of the FINEX Foundation has an ongoing financial literacy trainings with partner organizations, Coalition of Elderly Services, and Tulay sa Pagunlad. The trainings will run all Saturdays of February for COSE, and Monday and Tuesday for TSPI. It's time for an update. We want to know what's latest with you. Click on the link in the chat box to update your details and send your photo. The Broadcast Media Subcommittee of the Media Affairs Committee is reviving the FINEX Speakers Bureau to serve as a pool of resource persons for our collaboration with TV5 and Signal TV. The speakers will be invited as guests of news programs and a new talk show focusing on financial literacy. Timepieces and jewelry. Passion, precision, prestige. They say diamonds are a girl's best friend. Find out in the webinar organized by the Arts and Culture Committee how they can also be your best investment. Let us now welcome our host, Attorney Benedicta Dick Dubaladad. Attorney Dick is the co-chairperson of the Capital Market Development Council 2017 FINEX President and the founder and CEO of BDB Law.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Okay. This is our second general membership meeting for the year. And the theme for today is Capital Market Reforms Towards a Deeper, More Inclusive and Sustainable Philippine Capital Market. And this is very much in line with our 2022 overall theme of inspiring market confidence, empowering positive change. So to formally open the program, may I call on our president, Mr. Mike Arcatomi Guarin, to call this meeting to order.
Thank you, Dick. So good morning, everyone. I would like to call the second general membership meeting of FINEX for 2022 to order.
May we now have the invocation and the Philippine national anthem.
Heavenly Father, you are our Creator, our light, our wisdom and strength. May we ask for your guiding hand to lead us through this forum today and every day as we accomplish our work in various tasks. We pray for joy, enthusiasm, and fulfillment in our work. May we conduct ourselves and our business dealings in an environment of fairness, respect, and compassion. May we ask you to enter the hearts and minds of our leaders and countrymen. Give them strength and wisdom so that they may lead us through these difficult times with honesty, integrity, humility, and selfishness. Finally, we pray that you extend your healing hand over us, our families, and our nation, and help us overcome this health crisis that has claimed so many lives, including the lives of many of our friends, family members, and colleagues. Please heal those who are sick and guide the hands and minds of our doctors and nurses as they care for them. All these we humbly pray. Amen.
May I call again our President, Mike Gorin, for the President's message and report.
Thank you. Thank you, Dick. Again, good morning, Secretary Dominguez. Welcome to our general membership meeting. It is our honor to have you with us today. I am looking forward to hearing from you shortly and to the discussions that will follow. And I would also like to acknowledge the rest of the members of the Capital Market Development Council, as well as our partner organizations present today. To all FINEX members, good morning and welcome to our GMM. It has been an eventful and relevant past month for us. Recall that our last general membership meeting was January 18. As I reflect on the past 4 weeks, I am reminded of this quotation from Jana Kingsford. I don't know if you know her, but she's the author of Unjuggled, wherein she says, balance is something you don't find. It's something you create. End of quote. I'd like to think that through the mixture of FINEX activities this past month, we are creating a good balance for you, our dear members. Given that it is an election year, let me start with our efforts, intended to educate us and the rest of the registered voters. As I've said before, it is our responsibility as Filipinos to better understand who we are voting for. We definitely owe it to the future, to our children. We started this process late last year, but for 2022, we continued to focus on the presidentiables and vice presidentiables. Last January 21, we had our presidential forum with VP Lenny Robredo. It was then followed by the vice presidential forum on Feb 2 with Senator Kiko Pangilinan. The intention of the program has always been clear. It is to help us better understand the economic plans and platforms of the candidates. Invitations were sent out to all the presidential and vice presidential candidates, and we accommodated the candidates who accepted our invitations. Based on a FINEX-initiated request through our Good Governance Committee for a dialogue with the COMELEC and the PPCRV, we were able to meet with the COMELEC spokesperson, James Jimenez, and PPCRV chairperson, Myla Villanueva. We were made aware in that meeting or in that dialogue of the contingency plans that are in place and which are intended to ensure that we have a smooth national and local election process come May 9. Again, we truly appreciate the 22 other organizations who joined us in this effort. In reality, the said dialogue gave rise to a new initiative that we are currently working on. I would like to acknowledge the hardworking team of Chairperson Baby Nuesa, Co-Chair Marivic Españo, and Committee Vice Chairs Rod Franco and Cathy Ang. But it does not end there. On Thursday, 2 days from now, we will have our webinar entitled Your Vote Matters. Make it right, make it count. This is a joint effort by our Good Governance Committee and Junior FINEX. Please try to attend and invite the youth within your sphere of influence to likewise attend. So that's one. And then next month on March 8th, we are one of the partner organizations with Sharefield to bring to you Boto Mo, Kinabukasan Natin. This webinar aims to empower voters by emphasizing the value of their ballot and to equip them with a personal framework in selecting which candidates to vote for and who to and how to differentiate facts from fake news. So again, watch out for that. Again, March 8th, 2 p.m. And then late last month, last January 27, I hope most of you were able to attend the short joint GMM we had with Maria Ressa called Moment of Truth, a conversation with Maria Ressa. This was a joint GMM with 20 other business organizations. It was truly a nice moment spent with the first Philippine winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. And still on the same day, but later that afternoon, the FINEX Arts and Culture Committee brought to us Sagip Pelikula, Restoring Our Cinematic Heritage. It was a nostalgic, quick trip to the past as Leo Katigbak, our guest speaker, showed us the efforts and challenges that he and his team face in trying to restore Philippine movie classics for the current and future generations to enjoy. So I would like to personally thank the Liaison Director, Dominguez, and Committee Chairperson, Attorney Liaison. We are likewise, FINEX, we are likewise participating in an initiative which aims to take action against disinformation in social media. It is called Facts First PH. This is important because social media has now become one of the primary sources of information for majority of the population. Therefore, it makes sense to maintain the integrity of information it contains as much as we can. The orientation of participating organizations was held on Feb 4, and it is a continuing effort. Back to one of our committees, Women in Finance. On Feb 5, Saturday, the Women in Finance held their trike turnover ceremony to the 15 beneficiaries at Cristong Hari Parish. Allow me to repeat the message of Women in Finance Chair Danielle de Rosario. And I quote, "Thank you to all of our generous donors who made this donation possible, as well as all Women in Finance members for your continuing support to help empower others through our advocacies." End of quote. And then as recent as last week, Thursday, Feb 17, the Financial Inclusion Committee led by its chairperson, Gay Santos, and Vice Chair Joey Camus, and Liaison Director Flor Tariela, rolled out the committee's first webinar for the year, affecting positive change through inclusion and focus on critical sustainable development goals. It was indeed an educational and inspirational morning for all of us, all 2.5 hours of it. In terms of committee involvements, as you can see, it has been so far a busy start of the year for us. Expect this to ramp up as the rest of the committees continue their plans for the year. With this, I would like to profusely thank our hardworking liaison directors, committee officers, and committee members for planning and executing these initial webinars. I encourage more of you to participate in committee activities. If any of you present now are not yet a member of any of our committees, please let me know or let the secretariat know so that we can add you to the committee, or if you're up to it, committees of your choice. And then I'm about to end my opening. Regarding membership recruitment, we are actually targeting a very lofty target of 800 net members by the end of this year. This major undertaking will need the support of every one of us. So I would like to request everyone to try to recruit more FINEX members from your respective networks. We'll come up with regular reminders as the weeks move by. And in terms of sponsorships, we definitely need them. And I would like to personally thank the companies who have confirmed their sponsorship and support to FINEX. Ayala Land, SGB and Company, PNA Grant Thornton, KPMG, RG Manapit and Company, and RCBC, who has agreed to support FINEX on a per-event basis. But we're not yet done. The search for 2022 sponsors and supporters is a continuing effort for all of us. Your companies may be tapped soon, and I would like to thank you for your support in advance. And second, I would like to greet our CFO of the Year awardee 2019 and 2022 FINEX Institute Director Toti Bengzon. Happy birthday. I'm sure you're here, Toti. God bless you, Toti. Happy birthday again. And lastly, may I ask that we continue to pray for the mom of Mike Minuan, the mom of 2016 President George Shua, and the sister of Terry Magleo. May the three of you gain strength from God and knowing that your FINEX family is always here for you. Again, all of these activities, internal and external, we are doing to try to inspire more market confidence and to empower a truly positive change in our marketplace. And by listening to Secretary Dominguez, I'm sure our level of confidence in the marketplace would definitely grow. Maraming salamat and mabuhay ang FINEX.
Thank you. Thank you, President Mike. A lot of things to do for 2022. Now, let's proceed with the main and most awaited part of today's event. So let me call on the Liaison Director for the Capital Market Development Committee, a former president of ING, and now a director also of PSE, Ms. Zondi Garcia. Zondi?
Okay. Good afternoon, fellow FINEX members and friends. Our guest speaker is on his 6th year as the Secretary of the Department of Finance. He has been invited gazillion times to be a guest speaker, not just by FINEX, but also by other business organizations, both here and abroad. So we all know by now that he has one of the most extensive experience and background to be the Finance Secretary, having successfully managed private businesses that span across different industries, from banking, agriculture, mining, retailing, hotel, and real estate. He is also not a stranger to government service, having served as Minister of Natural Resources, then Secretary of Agriculture in past administrations. So perhaps for this afternoon, I would like to share my personal insights as a member of the Capital Markets Development Council in my capacity as Liaison Director of the FINEX Capital Markets Committee, where I had the privilege of working a little bit more up close with the speaker, who is the chair of the council. By the way, our very own Attorney Baladad is the co-chair of that council as well. I will say that our speaker is the most focused, dedicated, and results-driven chair of the Capital Markets Council that I have worked for. I know whereof I speak because I have worked with a number of finance secretaries as a member of the council, on and off for more than 2 decades, not just because of FINEX, but as a representative of the Bankers Association of the Philippines. As the council chair, our speaker expects that the members come to each meeting well prepared, with updates on their deliverables based on their commitments. He can be very demanding, brutally frank, but with a purpose. Well, because he wants results. And he is known to utter the 4-letter word, not the F one, but the milder one that starts with a D, when he gets frustrated and when he considers a question impertinent. So Attorney Francis, please take note. I must admit that there are times I am intrigued at what keeps our speaker going, considering the complexity of his job as the Secretary of Finance. He is still sharper than the best of us in the meeting and is able to ask the most incisive questions in any subject that is discussed. Perhaps his preoccupation outside of the office will give a glimpse of why our speaker remains at the top of his game. He is known as a voracious reader, an avid student of history, and take note, an accomplished trap and sporting clays shooter. I had to consult Mr. Google what a real good trap and sporting clays shooter does. So the one who is involved in this game should be agile and have quick reflexes because he has to shoot clay targets that are launched from different directions at a certain speed while you are starting from a long distance. So how is that for a pastime, huh? So this afternoon, it is with great honor to call on our speaker, DOF Secretary Carlos Dominguez III, to share with us how the Capital Markets Council, under his able leadership, has pushed some reforms that are transformative and game-changing. Secretary Dominguez, the virtual floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you for that generous and revealing introductions on the remind me to object next time you are suggested to introduce me. But anyway, thank you very much. Mr. Michael Guarin, President of FINEX, officers and members of this association, distinguished guests, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before this year's second general membership meeting of FINEX, or the Financial Executives Institute of the Philippines. I have always been grateful for the staunch support FINEX has given to the Duterte administration's reform measures, many of which sat on legislative shelves for decades due to the lack of political will to break the congressional deadlock. In particular, FINEX has been very supportive of our efforts to comprehensively reform the tax system, deepen and broaden our capital market, digitize our market to make investment opportunities more inclusive, and to grow our corporate sector. I also commend FINEX for its sustained effort to build financial literacy among our people and to keep your members abreast of developments in the financial sector. The importance of building financial literacy cannot be overstated. It is key to the development of our capital markets. A strong capital market, in turn, supports national progress. As you know, elections will be held in a few months, and a change in administration will happen mid-year. I am confident that the next administration will continue modernizing our financial sector to achieve financial inclusion among the Filipino people. I am also quite sure that the next Secretary of Finance, several undersecretaries and assistant secretaries will come from your ranks. As the premier association of finance professionals, you will supply the leadership and the talent necessary to continue the work of modernizing our financial sector. It is for this reason that I wish to share with you today the work of the Department of Finance. At the very beginning of this administration, I tried to define the work that we do. What I have is not a perfect definition, but I want to share my experience with you. The Department of Finance is the government's fundraiser. Its main task is to ensure that the government is adequately funded to perform its functions. The funding is used to meet the government's operational expenditures, expand priority programs for our people, and invest in the long-term growth of the national economy through infrastructure modernization. It is the job of the DOF to ensure that the economy is growing sustainably and inclusively. As the government's fundraiser, it is the responsibility of the DOF to have a taxation system that is simple, fair, and efficient. Otherwise, our citizens will not pay their duties. The tax system must also catalyze rather than paralyze economic growth. It is therefore important that we have efficient and honest tax collectors. In the best of all worlds, government spends exactly what they earn from public revenues. That never happens, of course. Sometimes expenditures happen before collection, as in any business. At other times, governments need to spend on a deficit to invest in future growth. This is the reason the DOF must also manage public borrowings and ensure that they are sustainable. The agency is the principal guardian of fiscal discipline. This is the reason President Rodrigo Duterte often refers to me as Dr. No. The credibility of our fiscal management is indispensable. It is the DOF that leads negotiations with multilateral funding institutions and bilateral partners to source funding for flagship projects and programs. It is then also becomes our duty to ensure that the borrowed funds are not wasted. These should be properly invested in strategic economic projects that will advance our development. This is why the Secretary of Finance is the chairman of the Investment Coordinating Committee of the NEDA. As you know, the Duterte administration achieved the highest credit ratings ever for the country. This enviable seal of good housekeeping for fiscal management. Such high credit ratings allowed us easy access to concessional financing when we negotiated international funding for our Build program and other sectoral projects. Our impeccable record of fiscal discipline enabled us to quickly access emergency financing from our development partners and the international capital markets for our COVID-19 response. It is therefore essential that we maintain or even increase our high credit ratings so we can borrow at lower costs and longer payment terms. This will likewise ensure lower interest rates and more accessible financing for our private enterprises and for the ordinary Filipino people. As head of the economic team, the DOF is also responsible for advancing economic and fiscal reforms to achieve inclusive growth for our people. This could be a tricky task. The DOF, along with other relevant agencies, must identify its goals and execute an overall strategy to achieve these reforms. In the case of the Duterte administration, we were clear from the beginning that our goals consist of dropping poverty rate to 14% or less by 2022, making the country more law-abiding, and achieving peace within our borders and with our neighbors. To realize these goals, we formulated the administration's 0 to 10-point socioeconomic agenda, which is now about 90% complete. In accomplishing this agenda, we needed to choose our battles carefully to ensure that the reforms already won are secured, even as we advance on more fronts. More importantly, we had to make sure that everyone on the team is working towards the same end. At times, this strategy resembles a meticulous military operation. It is like fighting a war. You should marshal your forces and be able to deploy them in the right order to advance as well as defend what you have already gained. As part of our transition document, the DOF is now completing a fiscal consolidation plan for the next economic team that will lead this vital agency. We hope that this will be useful in continuing the dynamic recovery of the domestic economy over the next few years. We commit to a seamless transition and stand ready to assist the next administration as it takes over the reins of leadership. The fiscal consolidation plan is just one of many measures that have to be undertaken by the next administration. Allow me to offer my view of the 4 most urgent things that need to be addressed by the new administration. First, we will have to outgrow our debt at the soonest possible time. Because of the pandemic, the government had to undertake emergency borrowings to cover new costs and the drop in revenues. This pushed our debt up to from a historic low of 36.9% in 2019 to 60.5% of GDP in 2021. The only way to make this sustainable is by growing the economy faster and investing in the future. The fiscal deficit should be lowered to cover only infrastructure investments and not operational expenses. Second, expect greater inflationary pressures globally due to supply shortages. In January 2022, almost half of the inflation of the Philippines was due to food, especially meat and electricity or fuel. We were severely affected by the African swine fever, which drove up the prices of meat. We should focus on taming food inflation by liberalizing the agriculture sector faster. Third, the pandemic aggravated external and internal inequalities. For instance, when we took office in 2016, the poverty rate was at 23.5%. We brought this down to 16.7% by the beginning of 2019. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we were back to where we started. Poverty incidence increased to 23.7% in the first semester of 2021. Fourth, we have to address the mounting problems associated with climate change without stretching our fiscal resources. We cannot rely entirely on COP and on the financing commitments of Western countries. We should not sit and wait idly while the planet burns. We must take our own actions now. These are complex issues, but since, as I said, the next leadership of DOF will likely come from a rich talent pool, such as the FINEX, I look forward to retirement without much anxiety. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary. I was 100% glued to my screen. That was really very clear. The Secretary has generously agreed to stay with us until 1 o'clock for a more intimate discourse in an open forum to be moderated by Attorney Francis Lim, our 2021 President and a former PSE President. But before the open forum, Francis, may I request you to give a 5-minute reaction to the Secretary's presentation. Francis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dick. Thank you, Secretary Dominguez. What I'd like to zero in by way of reaction is the capital market blueprint, which you strongly supported and focused on. I must say that among the secretaries of finance, you have really pushed for capital market reform, and that we thank you for. For the benefit of our audience, one of the things that significantly has impacted our capital market is the launching of the REIT law. This law was, I think, enacted way back in 2009, but it was not until 2020 under the leadership of Secretary Dominguez that the REIT industry was finally launched. Thank you for that, Mr. Secretary. I think because of your leadership, we are now in the radar screen of the map of the REIT world, and we have reached from the big names, Ayala, Philinvest, MegaWorld, Robinson Land, among others, that contributed around 200, 300 billion in market cap for our capital market. That's a very, very huge accomplishment of yours, Mr. Chairman. Talking about political will, this was political will at its finest, considering the perceived lost tax revenues that would result from the launching of the rate law. Okay, again, on the capital market blueprint, which are spearheading in a very focused way, I think that's what Sondi was saying a while ago. We have also seen concrete reforms for our capital market by our regulators to align themselves with objectives of the blueprint. For example, the PSE and SEC had liberalized the listing rules for the equities market by easing the track record and operating history requirements in an effort to get more listed companies, which is part of the blueprint. The PSE is also introducing the concept of sponsored listing for our smaller players, for smaller businesses. And I understand that the PSE has already submitted the rules to the SEC. Likewise, the Philippine Stock Exchange has digitalized applications of our small local investors called the LSIs, localist investors, to participate in IPOs. This would make the equities market more inclusive, again in line with your capital market blueprint, Mr. Secretary. I'm also told, and I wish to confirm because FINEX has worked with the PDEX, that the PDEX moved towards the digitalization of the primary market processes for the bond market. Okay, these are concrete initiatives that are happening because of the blueprint that you are strongly supporting, Mr. Secretary. Of course, the initiatives are still work in progress, but we in the financial community have seen things moving toward the right direction. Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary, for your leadership. And not known to everybody, we have also seen the removal of the so-called IPO tax. For years, we in the stock market have been complaining about this, as we saw it as a deterrent to more listings, which the blueprint seeks to achieve. We managed to remove the IPO tax under the REIT Act to encourage more companies with income-generating assets, real estate assets, to do an IPO to have democratized wealth. But it was not until 2020, under your watch, that the IPO tax was removed. I know you could have objected because of the negative impact on tax revenues, but you did not do it, Mr. Secretary. Indeed, following the removal of the IPO tax, it's not coincidental that we've seen big IPOs. The 25 billion IPO of Converge in October 2020, and Mondelez's almost 56 billion IPO in 2021. Interestingly, the PSE was awarded, I think, just last month as the best performing exchange in Southeast Asia, partly because of the IPOs that took place amidst the pandemic. You mentioned about the tax reform. Under your a historic economic reform indeed, the corporate income tax rates were drastically reduced. Again, as Secretary, you could have vehemently opposed this reduction due to the lost tax revenues resulting from it. On the contrary, seeing the bigger picture, you push hard for its approval and ask the business sector to support it. Believing that what you were doing was good for the country for the long term, we in FINEX rallied the private sector to support your initiative. And if you recall, Mr. Secretary, more than 50 private sector groups joined FINEX in a public statement supporting the passage of the CREATE bill into law. In this regard, it may not be amiss to state that when I was president of the Stock Exchange in 2010, I had a bill filed called the Stock Market Competitiveness Act, or SMARTCA, whose main feature was to grant a lower tax rate of 25% instead of 30% for a period of 10 years to companies that would list in the stock exchange within a period of 5 years from the effectivity of the proposed law. We did this to entice companies to do an IPO. Unfortunately, nothing had happened from 2010 until your CREATE Act was enacted by law. But your CREATE Act did a lot better because the income tax reduction was not only temporary but permanent, and additionally would ultimately reduce the corporate income tax rate to 20%. You know, from the stock market standpoint, from the capital market standpoint, reducing corporate income tax rate will not only make our country an attractive investment destination for FDIs, but also for portfolio investments, because with the reduced corporate income tax rate, there will be more money to declare as dividends, and more importantly, more money to expand business for the benefit of the investors. That is the effect in our mind of this reduced corporate income tax of under your CREATE Act. Having said all that, Mr. Secretary, not because you're here, the concern now, and I personally share the concern, is whether these capital market reforms under the blueprint will be continued by the next administration as aggressively as you have been doing. We in FINEX are keeping our fingers crossed that if offered the post again by the next administration, you would accept it. But it appears that you want to now rest. So hopefully the next Secretary of Finance will be as open-minded, bold, and capital market friendly as you are, Mr. Secretary. So that's my reaction, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Secretary Dominguez.
Thank you. I don't think everybody shares your opinion, but thank you anyway.
So, Dick, let's now go to the open forum, no? Am I right? Yeah, but before proceeding, may I remind you that Secretary Dominguez is only in until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, no? And we hope to finish the open forum by 1:50, no? To give because he's very busy. No? So, and please make use of the Q&A box, no, in your screen to type in your questions. No? I'm now counting, and there are now, okay. Okay, one question on cyber crimes, Mr. Secretary.
Yeah.
And I'd like to read. Cyber crimes continue to be on the rise in the country. It seems that this is an issue facing both the private and public sectors. What measures or programs are being put in place to allow government to avoid, to mitigate cyber-related issues? What if the cyber criminals target the BIR or BOC? How ready are we? That was a question, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you. First of all, it wasn't widely publicized, but one of the first cybercrime victims was United Coconut Planters Bank. Okay, some people stole about 160 million pesos from by penetrating their lousy security. Okay. So, but anyway, we have we have tightened up our security in all our banks, and I think we are in better position than we were when we got hit. But as we expand the digital channels for financial transactions, the government financial institutions and other agencies under the Department of Finance, including the BIR and BOC, are developing a cost-effective strategy to shield our financial system from potential cybersecurity threats. The same strategy will safeguard all investors from fraud and protect privacy to the fullest. On the part of the BIR and BOC, I assure you of the integrity of our systems and the security of taxpayers' information. We are constantly making sure that our cybersecurity defenses are reliable and up to date. I have also instructed the two agencies to have several backup servers to to ensure stability and resiliency in our systems should they be attacked.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I have a question here on taxation. PIFITA is supposed to rationalize taxation on different financial instruments. What are the chances of this bill? I think this is one of your baby bills, Mr. Secretary, being passed.
The Department of Finance is closely working with our partners in the Senate to ensure the timely passage of PIFITA before the administration ends in June 2022. We believe that the strong vocal support from the private sector, especially from FINEX, would encourage our Congress to pass this key measure that is geared towards genuine capital market development and would further encourage foreign investment in the country. Should it not be passed within this term, we will include PIFITA and the Real Property Valuation Assessment Reform Act in our fiscal consolidation plan, which we will turn over to the incoming economic team. This plan aims to ensure that the gains made by the Duterte administration in tax performance through fiscal reforms will not be rolled back, but ultimately continuously sustained.
Thank you. Another question, Mr. Secretary. I know I touched on this. Which of the major capital market reforms are you most proud of that you have helped push and has really contributed a lot to the local capital markets? And which one reform do you regret the most that you did not manage to complete before Congress went into the election recess?
One of our priority goals was to broaden the financial system and make it easier for the average Filipino to invest in the market through digitalization. The Capital Market Development Council, of which FINEX is a member, has accomplished much in realizing this. At the initiative of the Philippine Stock Exchange, the Philippine Dealing and Exchange Corporation, and the Securities and Exchange Commission, we have rapidly digitalized access to trading platforms. This led to substantial increase in the participation of retail investors in our capital market, which now accounts for 35% of total trading. The Bureau of Treasury has opened its doors to small individual investors, especially overseas Filipino workers, to invest in government securities through various digital channels. We also introduced innovative products such as the Premio bonds and the retail dollar bonds. By relaxing the listing rules for initial public offerings, we encourage more small and medium enterprises to access the capital markets through and expand the growth opportunities available to them. We also finally implemented the long dormant Real Estate Investment Trust Act, which has become a powerful financial instrument for the property development sector and our small investors. 2 years after its implementation, 6 REITs have already been established in the market with a total capitalization of 297.3 billion pesos. Of course, we are pushing very hard for the passage of PIFITA and the Capital Market Development Act. These game-changing measures will help us build a 21st century financial system that is more broad-based and inclusive. We look forward to the strong support of FINEX to get these measures passed, if not within this administration, then in the next one. Should the reforms not be passed within the last 6 months of this administration, they will be part, as I said, of the package of bills that we will recommend to the next administration.
Thank you for that, Mr. Secretary. I have a question here, which basically says, Secretary Dominguez, you are a DOF head who has stayed the whole term of the president.
What?
You are the Secretary who has stayed the longest, as Secretary of Finance under the president, under a president. Considering the capital market of the country, what is or your key expectations at the start that have not been met? Are
What
there
has
good surprises or unexpected developments that you note that you observe in capital market, Mr. Secretary?
In the capital market sector, I think there is still much to be done. I think this bill that we have proposed, especially on the retirement funds of employees, is, I think, very important. Another important measure that has not been really seriously considered is the military uniformed officers retirement, the MUP Pension Act. That is very, very important for the stability of not only the budget of the country, but also it could also help by creating a military pension fund that could also boost the capital market in this country.
Okay. You are at the forefront of climate change initiatives, and in fact, you we mentioned that as the four things that have to be attended to by the next administration. How can the capital market uniquely contribute to a greener environment?
Well, actually, the private sector in the Philippines has already contributed to that by issuing probably around $5 billion worth of green bonds. The government is starting to do that. And I think the most important thing for the private sector and for FINEX is to develop instruments that can be used by the private sector in implementing their own greening investments, and not only for clean energy, but for reducing pollution throughout the Philippines. But these things need money, and FINEX should really help work on instruments that can finance this in a sustainable way.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Now there's a question on the REITs. Seems to be attracting attention. And I'd like to read the question, Mr. Secretary. The REITs law was long delayed in its implementation, largely because the DOF in the last administration was worried about the tax losses. Your resolute action in moving forward was applauded by the financial community. It has successfully catalyzed many issues and more in the pipeline, deepening the capital market, likely bring in also fiscal benefits due to increased economic activity. Any reflections in retrospect?
On the REIT law?
Yes, Mr. Secretary.
REIT or
REIT,
RIC?
yeah. REIT, Real Estate
Oh,
Investment.
REIT.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I think, people say we lost money on the REIT. Actually, we did not, because nobody was doing it anyway. So you lose nothing. It's only theoretical. The guy who's going, one of you guys is going to be Secretary of Finance. You have to have a little common sense, okay? This is not all PhD material. It's really common sense. Nobody was doing any transactions on the REIT. So theoretically, you're going to lose money. But if nobody's doing it anyway, you're not losing anything. So the important thing was to get an instrument such as this into the market, but to require the people who raise the money in the Philippines to invest the money in the Philippines in similar infrastructure projects. That is really, the reason, the thing that got it going. But then a lot of it had to do with the fact that we had confidence that through the train law, we had already built up a good financial flow of taxation into the government, and including the increases in sin taxes. You know, reforming the tax system in this country required a lot of confidence, and it was a confidence building exercise. That is why the first thing I did in the tax reform was go after the illicit cigarette trade. How? Because I could not possibly justify an increase in taxation when in fact we were losing something in the area of 1.5 billion pesos a month. So that was the first thing we did. That is the first step in tax reform. Tax administration first, so that nobody can accuse us of putting increasing taxes without correcting the biggest violation of tax in the country, which was incidentally ignored by the previous administration. So that's the first step. Once the Congress has confidence that actually we will implement the tax law, that we have shut out the leaks, then we can move ahead. Again, I tell you, doing tax reform, doing any reform requires a lot of planning and a lot of strategic thinking. You cannot just go there and start waving a banner and say, oh, we'll do this, we'll do that. You can't do it. You have to sit down, think about it, think about who your enemies are, think who your friends are, and hopefully your enemies make mistakes and that you don't.
Thank you. Yeah. I have another question again on the
Sure.
taxation, Mr. Secretary. The stock transaction tax is proposed to be decreased to 0.1%. With this low amount, why not just remove the STT so local companies can also be in the foreign markets?
You know, we do need some revenue, okay? Regardless of it, we still need revenue. Now, we try to lower it, but you know, eliminating it it cannot totally be justified considering our fiscal problems right now.
Okay, well taken, Mr. Secretary. Okay, I'll just. What do you see as the future role of the mining industry in the Philippines in the next 10 years?
Mining?
Yes, yes.
Well, just what they did before. Create jobs in rural areas where no jobs are to be had. Hopefully, to manage the ecology much better than they did in the past, and to contribute to exports and the development of the metals industry in the Philippines.
Okay, I'll just go through the questions on the chat box and Q&A box. Again, Mr. Secretary, I know you already said
No.
busy.
Go ahead.
Mr. Secretary, can you be prevailed upon to stay as DOF Secretary in the interest of providing continuity in your fiscal programs? If so, what your stand on the issue of wealth tax?
I'm against it.
Okay, you're
I'm
against.
against wealth tax because I'll tell you, first of all, just look at the experience of some European countries, okay? They impose a wealth tax. What happened? No, particularly in France, because I had a very good friend who was quite a wealthy person in France. What happened? They taxed his wealth. You know what they did? He brought it to Switzerland. How did that help the country? That's number one. Number two, the real wealth tax in the Philippines that is real estate tax. Okay. However, that is not a national tax. That is a local tax. And that depends on, number one, how you assess the tax, and number two, the value of the tax. That is the kind of thing you can tax because nobody can hide that, okay? And nobody can take it away to Switzerland or elsewhere. That's land.
It's land.
And yet, nobody does land tax. What is the assessed value of property along Ayala Avenue now? How much is the assessed value? Do you know? Huh?
No, I
The
don't
last
know.
time I looked, it was 40,000 pesos per square meter. Now, who does the assessment? It's not national government. It's local governments. So, local governments are in the best position to implement a real effective wealth tax, which is tax on real estate. And yet, it does not get done because local mayors and provincial governors do not want to be kicked out of office. But that is not a national issue. That is a local issue, according to the administrative code. That should be addressed. That's why we have that that proposal to it's part of our tax reform. I think it's package 3, basically to say that let's assess property in accordance with international standards.
Okay.
So you live in Forbes Park, don't you? What's
No.
the assessed value of your property there?
No, Mr. Secretary, unfortunately, or fortunately.
Who lives in Forbes Park? You tell me what the assessed value is there. It's nowhere near market value. You want wealth tax? That's what it means. Not tax on deposits, because that can fly away. Okay.
Another question, Mr. Secretary, from an anonymous attendee. No? There was news recently that you will be proposing additional taxes for the new administration. Is this true? And if so, what are these additional taxes?
You know, we are just putting the final touches on our fiscal consolidation plan. Okay. And we are not at this point. I don't have a complete package, but certainly, you know, looking realistically at our situation, we have to pay for COVID. I mean, we cannot just have COVID and not pay for it, okay? You don't know how much we spent on just paying for the vaccines.
Okay. Another question, Mr. Secretary, I hope you don't mind.
No, I don't mind.
Okay. Part of the blueprint is to require private companies that enjoy tax incentives to list, like the BOI registered companies do. How about eligible GOCCs like what Vietnam did with the state-owned enterprises? It may also be a way of improving their corporate governance.
What did Vietnam do? I don't know. I didn't.
They encourage, I think they put up a system that encourage their state-owned enterprises, which is the counterpart of our GOCCs, to list with the stock exchange.
To list?
With the stock exchange.
Yeah. That's possible. But a lot of them, tell you, are lousily managed, okay?
Yeah. That's why I said eligible, no? Because I know.
However, let me tell you something. Under this administration, we have really boosted up the capital of DBP and Land Bank. When I came in, DBP's capital was something like 25 billion pesos. Now it's about 70. Land Bank's capital was around 70 billion. Now it's 200 billion. Okay. That is because, number one, we did not collect any dividends from them because we are confident in our other sources of funds. Number two, we convinced the Congress that the best way to help small enterprises with this COVID crisis is to put the money in banks. Because if you put it as a capital in the bank, they can lend out probably 8 or 10 times that amount, rather than a government agency lending the money directly to an enterprise. You can only lend it once. Banking has a multiplier effect of about 10 times. We also boosted up the capital of the Philippine Guarantee Fund, which has a multiplier effect of about 17 times. And in fact, by the way, the MSME guarantees of Philippine Guarantee have increased by almost a factor of 5 or 6 times in this short period of time. So that is you get the most bang for your buck that way. And we have especially focused on recapitalizing the banks. Now, we are also proposing a change in the charter of Land Bank, which I don't think can get past this in this administration. You know, Land Bank is a stupid charter which says only cooperatives can invest in it. Come on, that's really stupid, okay? So what we are doing is we are increasing the authorized capital of Land Bank from 200 to 800 billion pesos, increasing the paid up capital to 200 billion, and hopefully start listing Land Bank in the stock market to the extent of about 20%, with no group holding more than 5% of Land Bank. So that is the plan. That is the proposed legislation that we have done. I hope it gets done in the next administration. As regards to DBP, I think we really have to review the viability of DBP on its own. By the way, we also just recently concluded the merger of UCPB to Land Bank. I prioritized that over the merger of DBP because UCPB, actually, if you analyzed it, we had a potential risk of failure of UCPB that would cost PDIC 150 billion pesos. Okay, so we decided we will put UCPB first in a safe place and then move it forward.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. There's a general question. What national issues keeps you from a sound sleep at night?
Nothing. I sleep soundly.
Thank you for that. That's very okay. Another question. How significant would be the spending towards sustainable economic sector / activities and or regenerative economy?
What? I don't understand the question.
How significant would the spending be towards sustainable economic sectors or activities and or regenerative economy? I think this is expensive, no?
Well, I don't really understand the question very well, but you know, this administration has doubled the investment in as a percentage of GDP, has doubled our investments in infrastructure. That is the most that will provide sustainable growth for the country.
Okay. Now, there's something that's of interest directly to FINEX. What's the status of the land bank acquisition of the PDEX? No, is it going to happen or?
I hope so.
Yeah. So
but it will not acquire 100%.
Yes.
Okay. I think the idea would be to acquire something like 49% and then list it in the market.
Okay. Yeah. There's also a view that would it not be better for the PSE be the acquirer? Because in
No.
other, no, yeah, because they're saying that in other markets, both the equity and stock exchange are on the same under the same roof. But I think you have a different opinion, Mr.
Well,
Secretary.
you know, you were the head of PSE, okay? PSE is not even following the law with regards to the shareholding of the brokers.
Brokers, you mean the brokers?
Correct, yeah. I mean, that is really the reason. That is really the reason that I will not agree to transferring it to the PSE until the law is followed.
Okay. Thank you.
Effectively, effectively, not only the letter but the spirit of the law.
Francis, your last question, please.
My last question, okay. To what extent did the GMA and the second administrations contribute to the current state of the national credit rating?
What?
To what extent did the GMA and Aquino, the second administrations, contribute to the current state of our national credit rating?
You know, from the beginning, I have said that we built on the accomplishments of the past administrations, okay? First of all, the GMA administration passed the very difficult legislation increasing the VAT, okay? That was a good accomplishment for what they did. We also built on the Aquino administration's accomplishments, particularly in sin tax, and the fact that they hardly spent on infrastructure. So we had a very big leeway at that time. In fact, I remember one of the reporters asked me, "How broke are we?" When I took over, I said, "No, we're not broke. We have plenty of money because they didn't spend it." But you know, the result of not spending that was trains that were getting stuck, right? Traffic that was very, very difficult. Okay, the road system in the provinces were very bad. The ports were in bad condition, but they saved a lot of money. Okay, so that was good.
Okay.
So we build on the accomplishments, and we also learn from past mistakes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. Any final note for our audience, for the FINEX members? If I turn you
No,
over to
nothing
Dick.
except thank you for the invitation, and thank you for your consistent support of the tax reform. And as I said earlier, I'm almost certain that the economic team members of the next administration will come from the ranks of FINEX. So good luck. But most importantly, if you guys get into public office, enjoy it. Okay? Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much. Maraming salamat to.
Thank
Let me
you.
now turn you
you.
over to Dick. Dick, please. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Secretary.
Secretary. Thank you, Francis. And thank you to the FINEX community for that engaging, I call it intimate discourse. Okay. So now I think it's time to thank the Secretary. May I call again the FINEX President, Mike, to give the plaque of appreciation.
Thank you, Dick. So again, thank you for your candor, Mr. Secretary, during our just concluded Q&A. Very practical and logical views indeed. Again, I'd like to thank you for gracing our event. So just reading through this plaque of recognition, the Financial Executives Institute of the Philippines presents this plaque of recognition to the Honorable Carlos G. Dominguez III, Secretary, Department of Finance, in recognition of his generosity in sharing his invaluable time, knowledge, and insights as guest of honor during the second general membership meeting of FINEX, given on this 22nd day of February 2022, signed by yours truly, Michael Arcatum H. Guarin, FINEX President. Thank you very much, Secretary Dominguez.
Thank you,
Thank you.
sir. Can I hear a digital applause also? Wala, it's not in the
Wala.
folder. Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, can we proceed now to the other matters? And may I call on Kaloy Cervantes for the chairman of the membership committee to formally introduce our new members.
Yes, thank you, Dick. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, fellow FINEX members and Secretary Dominguez. We will now induct the following members. I shall call on the name, state the company position and the company and the sponsor. First is Trina E. Asuncion, Director for Financial Planning and Analysis, Director for Financial Investors, Cebu Air Inc. The sponsor is Mike Arcatomi Guarin. Next is Mylene S. Bisnar, Partner, Advisory Services and Audit and Assurance Division, Head Markets Group of Punong Bayan and Araulio. Sponsor, Ma Victoria C. Españo. Next is Lucy L. Chan, Partner, SGV and Company. Sponsor, Wilson P. Tan. The next is Sheila Rica G. Dioso, Partner of RG Manabat and Company. Sponsored by Michael Arcatomi H. Guarin. Finally, we have Theodore Anto Abeti Estrada, Chief Operating Officer, All Transport Network Incorporated, sponsored by Attorney Francis Lim. So to add solemnity to the occasion, may I request all members to kindly open your cameras and may I call on our President, Michael Arcatomi H. Guarin, for their oath of membership. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Kaloy. May I ask everyone to please raise your right hand for the oath of membership, and please repeat after me. I state your name. Hold on. Having been accepted as a member of the Financial Executives Institute of the Philippines,
Having been accepted
as a member of
the Financial Institute of the
Executive
Philippines,
Institute of the Philippines,
do hereby solemnly swear
do
hereby
hereby solemnly
solemnly
swear
that I will faithfully discharge to the best of my ability
that I will
I will
faithfully
faithfully
discharge to the best of
my
my abilities
my duties and responsibilities in the pursuit of its goals and objectives.
my
my
duties
duties
and
and responsibilities in the pursuit
its
of
goals
its
and
goals and
objectives.
That I will protect and uphold its constitution and bylaws.
That
that I will uphold and protect its constitution and bylaws,
That I will abide by its code of ethics.
that I will
I will
abide
abide by
by its code of ethics,
That I will observe the highest professional, moral, and ethical standards.
that
that
I
I
will
will observe
uphold the highest professional,
moral,
moral, and ethical standards,
And I voluntarily impose this obligation upon myself without mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
And that I
voluntarily
I impose this obligation upon myself without
mental reservation
or purpose of
purpose
evasion.
or evasion.
So help me God.
So
help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Congratulations, everyone. Welcome to FINEX. And my personal welcome to Mylene and Sheila, who I know personally.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Dick.
Anton, congrats.
Welcome, Trina. Welcome, Sheila.
Congrats. You.
Thank you.
Welcome, Trina. Nice to see you again.
So
Liaison, nice to see you again. Long time.
that ends our GMM today. Please attend our activities as lined up by the president earlier and also before the start of this event. To formally close, may I now request again our president to take the floor to close it.
Again, thank you everyone for gracing our event and for participating in our second general membership meeting. So I would like to call this, I would like to adjourn our current meeting. Enjoy the rest of the day and have a nice week, everyone. God bless.
God bless. That ends our event for today. Please attend future GMNs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.